Hi, my name is Patrick McConville, and this is Edible Architect. For the September edition of Edible Architect, we will be baking and building a Scrumptious Schoolhouse using our Edible Architect cookie cutter construction set, as well as our Schoolhouse Brick cookie texture roller. The recipe for this month is teacher's favorite apple crunch cookie, and we will be putting everything together right here. So go ahead, grab your supplies, your blueprints, and we can go ahead and break ground. When you're ready to begin, grab all of the supplies you'll need to make the walls for your Scrumptious Schoolhouse. For this recipe, we will need granulated sugar, unsalted butter, room temperature egg whites, and then our whisked together dry ingredients, which in this case are flour, freeze-dried apple powder, cinnamon, salt, and baking soda. And once you have those elements, you can go ahead and first combine your butter and your sugar in the bowl of a stand mixer or in a bowl if you're using a hand mixer until everything is nice and creamy. Once you've incorporated all of your butter into your sugar, you can add your egg whites one at a time until well incorporated. Once you have added both of your eggs, you can begin incorporating your dry ingredients, and you will want to add those in approximately 3/4 cup or half cup increments until everything is well combined. And you can already smell the apples as you begin incorporating this, and it smells really, really good, so I cannot wait to see how these come out. Incidentally, all of our recipes can be found on ediblearchitect.com under the recipes section of our website. Now, as you're making your dough, if you find that it is looking like it's getting a bit dry, stop adding your dry mixture. So I ended up with about this much remaining. And it will depend a lot on the humidity, the size eggs that you're using, and several other factors as to whether your dough begins to get dry before you finish adding the dry ingredients. But you really want to aim for a consistency that is clay-like. So something that you will be able to work with and mold. It's not too sticky, but it's also not too crumbly and dry. So this is perfect. And once you achieve this consistency, stop adding your dry ingredients. You can go ahead and remove your dough from your bowl, and we will roll it into 2 balls and then wrap each ball in plastic wrap so that we can begin rolling out our cookies for our walls. When you're ready to begin rolling out your dough and cutting your cookies, grab one of your dough balls and cut it in half. You can then grab your Edible Architect cookie cutter construction set, a few tools in order to pry any cutouts from their openings, and some flour to dust your surface. And I will be using my rolling pin along with some 1/8 inch rolling pin bands in order to achieve 1/8 inch thick cookies. You do not have to be that precise, but make sure that you're nice and consistent and you get them nice and thin so you get a good finished crisp cookie in the end. You do also want to refer to your blueprints in order to ensure that you make 2 each of the relevant pieces like the side walls here. And then go ahead, roll everything out, cut out all of your pieces, place them on parchment-lined cookie sheets, and bake them in a preheated 375-degree oven for about 10 to 12 minutes or until they're nice and golden and crispy, but do not overbake. Once you've baked all of your pieces and allowed them to cool, if you would like to take the optional step of adding caramel candy glass windows to your apple cookies, then go ahead and line 2 cookie sheets with aluminum foil and take each of the pieces that have window or door openings and place them on the aluminum foil. Then crush up your favorite caramel hard candies and then fill each of the window and door openings with them. And then you should have something that looks like this. And you can go ahead and preheat an oven to 350 degrees and then place these in the oven for 5 minutes or just until all of the caramel has melted and is just beginning to bubble. Then remove it, let it cool completely, and come back and we will begin our construction. While you wait for your pieces to cool, you can make your royal icing mortar. In this case, I'll be using a traditional royal icing, but you definitely could use a peanut butter royal icing, a chocolate royal icing, or even add some cinnamon to your royal icing if you so desired. Any of the above would be great. Because I did fill my windows with the caramel candy though, I don't want to overdo it with too many flavors, so I will use just a traditional sugar icing. To get started, we can whip our egg whites on high until they're nice and frothy, about a minute or so. And then once they're foamy, we will begin to add our powdered sugar mixture whisked together with our cream of tartar. And before we do that, we want to add our lemon juice to those egg whites. So I'll get these nice and foamy. I will then begin adding the sugar until we have all of the sugar added, and then I'll switch to high for about 3 minutes or so. It will vary depending on the speed of your mixer, of course, but you just want to get a texture that is thick enough that it will hold the house together, but thin enough that you'll be able to push it through a piping bag. When you achieve the right consistency, you'll have something approximately like this. And you can go ahead and transfer it to a pastry bag or cut out the corner of a Ziploc bag and you can use that as a pastry bag. Once you've completed all of your pieces, they should look something like this, and we can begin our assembly. You will need, of course, your mortar or royal icing. In my case, I added some food coloring in order to give it kind of a Schoolhouse Brick color so that you won't notice the royal icing as much. And you can see that each of the pieces that we filled with the caramel candy glass came out really nice and clean, and it'll taste like a caramel apple as you're eating the dessert. So to begin our assembly, you first want to take whatever platform you'll be using, whether that's a plate, a tray. In my case, I have a little stand that I bought at a home goods store. And I also want to light my schoolhouse from the inside. So I actually drilled a hole through the center of the board here. And then I stuck a battery operated light kit on the bottom and then snaked the lights up and through. And what you want to do with whatever platform you're using is first take the front wall of your schoolhouse and with a pencil, trace exactly where you want that front wall of your schoolhouse to sit on your platform. You can then take your side wall and then trace a line exactly perpendicular to that front wall where you want your side wall to go. And that will provide you with a good point of reference for the first corner of your schoolhouse, and you'll make sure that you end up with a nice squared structure with nice clean lines. And to begin, we will also want some kind of a support so that we can lean any walls, if necessary, up against it. And in my case, I'll just use a soap container. So you can go ahead and begin with your front wall. So in our case, this is the front wall of our schoolhouse. And if you did put the caramel candy glass windows in, you will want to first peel the aluminum foil off the back of the wall carefully, beginning on one end. And you'll see that we have a really nice clean piece with our caramel candy windows. And we will invert that piece, we'll flip it upside down, and we will add a line of icing along the bottom edge. And then press that down into place along the line that we drew on our platform. And you can hold that for just a second and then lean it up against your support while you grab one of your side walls. So here we have one of our side walls, and we want to look and see which side, which edge will be touching the front wall, and we will add a line of icing to that edge as well as the bottom edge. Okay, we can remove our support. And you'll see that we now have our first two pieces in place, and we can press them together and make sure that we have a nice clean edge and a squared corner. At this point, I am going to let this sit for just a second, and I will put our chimneys together. So for the schoolhouse, I have two chimneys. It doesn't matter if you want to only have one, you can have one. You can have three. And I'm going to take one of the square or rectangular rather pieces of the chimney and add a line of icing on the inside face along the shorter side on each side. Then I'm going to take one of the sides or front back of my chimney, depending on how you look at it. That looks like this. Invert it so that it's upside down, and then pressing both down against my work surface, I'm going to press that piece with the cutout against the line of icing on one side, take another of these pieces, and repeat that, pressing it into the other line of icing. And then I will take another of my rectangular chimney pieces, add a line of icing along the inside face on the shorter edge on each side, and then press each of those lines of icing against my chimney pieces. And if you press everything down against your work surface, you'll make sure that you have a nice, clean, squared top for your chimney. And we can set that aside and repeat that same process to make our second chimney. Okay. We can set our chimneys aside to dry and resume construction of our main structure. And we will want to now take our second side wall, determine which edge will meet the front wall, and add a line of icing to that edge as well as the bottom edge. We will now take our back wall and we will add a line of icing to the front edge of each of the side walls that will press against the back wall. And then add a line of icing to the bottom edge of our back wall. And then press that down into place, making sure that our corners meet and we have nice, clean, square corners and straight lines. We can now place our first roof piece. So we will place the back roof first. So pick whichever roof piece is less perfect and will be less visible. And then we will add a line of icing along the top 3 back edges. And then taking our roof piece so that the windows are at the bottom edge of the roof, we will press that down into place as evenly as we can. And you also want to make sure that the back roof does not protrude beyond the peak of the roof because you don't want it to interfere with your front roof. We can then add a line of icing to the top 3 edges of the front of the schoolhouse. And along the entire roof line. And then take our final roof piece. Press that into place and pinch gently to join all of our seams together. And we now have an enclosed structure. And we can go ahead and find the front of our schoolhouse. So that will be the side that has the clock cut out. And we will add a bead of icing to the back of our first front stoop piece. So this will be what forms the first piece of our front steps for the school. So find this little rectangular piece, add a dot of icing, you don't need too much, on the back, and then press that into place below the front door to the school, trying to get it as flush as you possibly can. Next, you want to take the even smaller rectangular piece that is half the size of the first rectangle, add a small dot of icing to the back side, and then press that into place so that it forms the bottom step of our front steps for the school. Next, we have the front of our front stoop. Looks kind of like a field goal. And we can add a little bit of icing to that. And then press that into place against the piece we just placed so that we get the effect of a school front staircase. Next, if our chimneys have sufficiently dried, we can take the first chimney, add a line of icing along the entire bottom edge, and then press that down into place on one side of our schoolhouse. And we will repeat that with the other chimney. Placing that on the other side. And we now have our completed schoolhouse. And I am going to tidy up a bit. I will come back and we will light it up and I will discuss how I plan to serve it. When you've completed construction on your Scrumptious Schoolhouse, it should look something like this. In my case, I got so excited about cutting out the schoolhouse pieces that I neglected to roll the brick texture on them before I baked the pieces. But luckily I did remember before I cut the roof pieces, so at least you get a hint of what the texture roller will give if you use it on your wall pieces. I tasted a few scraps of the cookie and I love the recipe. I think it's really tasty. I think that the caramel candy will go really well with it, but I'm really excited about how I'll serve it. So I think that this cookie will go great with caramel ice cream or with vanilla ice cream and caramel syrup. So I think one of those will be my chosen serving suggestion. Without further ado, I can go ahead and light it up. If you recall, I did put a light kit inside of the cookie schoolhouse here. So I will light that up. And you'll see our full structure. I think that this would be perfect as a gift for your teacher at the beginning of the school year, maybe as something really unique to bring to the bake sale or to a local fundraiser for school. So let me know what you think, and if you do make one, please tag us on social media @ediblearchitect or #ediblearchitect. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see what you build. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to get a Scrumptious Schoolhouse cookie cutter construction set and Schoolhouse Brick texture roller for yourself, please visit ediblearchitect.com and you can visit our store.